just want to make a quick shout out to Mr. Jason Spall from Coastal Asbestos Removal. Jason left us a lovely 5-star Google review. And he said, Jason from Coastal Asbestos Removal here. As a business owner in a trades-based business, it's hard to get experts out there that are digital marketers. Matt is an ex-plumber who created this group to bring together the biggest community of trade-based business owners to accelerate their business development. It's an important part of my business development, like an online mastermind group where advice and experiences are shared for the group development. Get involved, it's a no-brainer. Thank you very much, Jason. Jason's actually one of the most active members in our online community. If you guys aren't part of that community, you can head across to Facebook and you can search the Site Shed group. There's a page as well. You can like the page and you can join the group. You just have to fill in a few questions and the lovely Talia will let you in. And then you can be part of those conversations too, the online mastermind. So thank you very much, Jason. Very much appreciated. I look forward to the podcast, guys, and I look forward to speaking to you in the group. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Tax Essentials for Tradies and Contractors series that I'm conducting with my co-host out of the United States, Mr. Tab Burkhalter. Now, guys, this is the third and final episode. If you haven't heard the first two, do me a favor, go and check, or do yourself a favor, I should say, go and check them out. They're both very informative, and we, as you know, we kind of design these sub-series so that they do lead into each other. So the first episode there, we were talking about why it's important to keep 2 sets of books. We also dived a lot into technology there and, cool cloud programs like Xero and that kind of thing that can help you get a clear understanding of those of your numbers, your figures, chart of accounts, that kind of stuff. The second episode, we were talking about cash flow and reporting. That was brilliant. Go and check that one out, definitely, just to give you an understanding of what you need to be reporting on and when. And this episode, we're going to be talking about laying the right foundations for your business. So, without any further ado, we're going to jump right into this episode. If you like what you hear, please leave us a review over at iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, or YouTube, or Facebook, or whatever. And that's all. Enjoy. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations, and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form, and let's have a conversation. It'll be the best thing you could possibly do to kickstart 2019 the right way.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to part 3 of the Tax Essentials for Tradies and Contractors series that I'm conducting with my co-host for this series, Tab Burkhalter from thenumbershouse.com. Tab, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Tab, you're all the way from Tennessee, and this has been a great series so far. In episode 1, we covered off on why you need to keep 2 sets of books. In the previous episode, we were speaking about understanding cash flow and reporting. And in this final episode, we're talking about laying the right foundations for your business. This series is coinciding actually quite well with the Australian financial year, which runs from July through to June. I know it's a little bit different the way you do it over there in the States. However, what we've been talking about has been extremely relevant to everyone. In this episode, we're going to be talking about laying the foundations, and we've covered off a little bit of these, some of these things in the previous episodes. However, I think we're going to dive a little bit deeper into those in this episode. So, I mean, I know laying the right foundations for your business is relevant beyond accounting. I mean, it's super relevant when we're talking about planning and setting strategies and mapping out a roadmap. In my experience, the financial side of things, because I'm not overly numbers oriented, has been a bit of a challenge over the years. However, now I feel like it's become kind of a bit of a strength. So for any of you listeners out there that are thinking, oh God, I'm just going to tune out to this because I hate this whole financial side of my business, take my advice. You don't want to do that. It's probably the most important thing you should be focusing on. And although we don't always like the look of it or the reality of it, it is important. And if you can get good at analyzing your numbers, you will find that everything else will will fall into place, and it will help you set the right goals and set the right trajectories for your organization. Tab, let's talk about, we've got a number of things to talk about here. We've already spoken about the multiple checking accounts scenario, but I think we might dive into that a little bit deeper. What do you think?
That'd be great. We can start off there, and then we can go from there and see where the conversation goes. But the fundamentals of a business is, just to echo something that you had said just a second ago, I personally hated to look at my own books. I hired other people to look at the books for me and tell me what they meant. And then one day I was on vacation up in Canada, had taken my daughter up there to go fishing up in Hay Bay. And I get a phone call from my banker that says, hey, your checking account is overdrawn by $15,000. How do you want us to cover your paychecks? Well, what do you mean? I had $63,000 in the checking account when I left. No, you don't have $63,000 in the checking account. You're overdrawn.
What?
So the banker gave me a loan over the phone to cover while I was still up in Canada. Got down there and found out that the people that I had hired to manage my books for me had not been reconciling my American Express payments.
Oh.
And so for close to a year, I was looking at the reports they were giving me, but had never actually dived into my own books just to verify what they were telling me.
Good grief.
And it was the most sickening feeling I'd ever had, going from being the viewpoint that, hey, my books are telling me I am doing great, and then realizing I don't have anything. So that made me do a fundamental shift as to what are the core things that I have to have for my business to succeed. And that's where the checking accounts really came in to play. Is having a business account is great. You always have to separate your business from your personal. So you have your personal checking account, you have your business, but then you need to have a business credit card. You need to have a personal credit card. So that way you keep the two of those purchases separate. But I recommend getting a fifth checking account called your tax account. And that tax account is where you go in once a week, look at the profit that your business is actually making cash flow wise, and pull a certain percentage out to make sure you have enough money saved up at the end of the year to pay the government what they are owed. And then that is forcing, at least that forced me to actually see, hey, I'm not relying upon what an employee is telling me, and I'm not relying upon a printout. I'm actually seeing what the bank is sending me, and I am physically making sure that I transfer enough money to cover taxes into this account that no one else can touch.
Right.
And that is a fundamental to make sure that you've got taxes set aside. Vendors can run you out of business, but the government can throw you in jail.
Right.
And I don't think anybody wants to be in jail.
Yeah, it's I know it's a bit of a shocking revelation when things like that are dumped on your doorstep. And I've been there myself. I had an accountant when I first got started with the business, and it was just the worst experience because I didn't know anything about accounting to begin with, and like I found like even the conversations I was having with him, albeit I was ignorant with accounting, I didn't understand a lot of it, but it was such a patronizing conversation every time I needed to have it that it got me to the point where I didn't want to have it any further. And then I found out that I was in this huge tax deficit as a result of not wanting to have the conversations with the guy that always was patronizing me. So I was like chasing my tail around. And that was basically my first experience with accountants. So I was on like a hate accountant campaign for quite a while until I found a good one. But I mean, I suppose accountants are like, technicians and contractors. They're not always easy to. It's not always easy to find a good one.
They are, and you're going to find what I traditionally have found to be two different sets of accountants, and that's another part of the fundamental of your business is finding your advisors to help your business grow. You can be the best rugby player in the world, but you still need a coach, somebody that's on the outside that can see things that you don't see.
Yep.
Or I know that you're a surfer. If you have somebody that's standing on the side watching your technique, they can give you pointers as to how to make you be better. And so the second fundamental of your business is having a group of advisors that can be on the outside looking in to have those hard conversations with you. Yep. Because you sometimes are so far in the weeds, you don't see the forest burning around you.
So when we're talking about advisors, advisory teams, that kind of thing, I'd like to dive into that a bit more. I've never really addressed that on the show, but it is interesting. And I know over the years, I've certainly had a tremendous amount of poor advice with business, and obviously now running quite a large podcast. There's we get people almost every day who come to us preaching to be business coaches and wanting to come on the show and talk about their expertise. Although when you dive a little bit deeper, you learn that they've pretty much had a contracting business themselves that didn't really work, so they thought they'd fall back and become a coach so they can teach people how to fail in their business as well. I'm curious now when we're talking about choosing the right advice for your company. What you look for in that regard. Accounting is absolutely is paramount. However, finding the right accountant or the right financial advisory person is even more paramount. What are some of the questions people should be asking?
What I ask is experience. What is your experience, and have you actually been involved in the industry that you are advising on?
Yeah.
I mean, as I said in one of the first podcasts, I at one time had gotten into building residential homes with a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. That gave me a very firsthand knowledge on just the costs and the myriad of headaches that can go into construction, or even if you are a subcontractor or a tradie. We had hired somebody to come out to do the wiring, but never realized that we forgot to get the wiring license for the home that we were working on.
Right.
I mean, so when you talk to your advisors, you want to know, what have they done? What type of successes or experiences do they have? And that's where I think it's good to ask those questions. The other thing that you look for is, what is their skill set? What specifically do you need in your business? Because people can, if they are truly there to help coach, then they will help open doors to get your business successful. They will have a vested interest in your success.
Right.
Versus just being a number for them to clock you on and clock you off. So the other ones that one is, the clients, the experience, their personal experience, what is the experience of the team of people that are going to be working with you. Yeah. At our office, we focus a lot on business startups and helping people get started in their business. So every person that is a manager level at my company at one time has owned their own business. So they know directly what is involved in establishing a company.
Yeah.
And so that type of firsthand knowledge is crucial.
So it's an intimidating task, and I suppose, to be fair, it's kind of a hard task to take on when you're new into business yourself, and you're to be asking people that are calling themselves experts questions about something you don't really know anything about yourself. I've found it can be quite challenging, especially for trade business owners. I mean, as tradies here in Australia, especially, you go to college, you study your trade, you get good at swinging the hammer and applying your trade, but at no point does anyone ever teach you about business. So you're kind of forced to sink or swim in that regard. It's one of the reasons, actually, I launched the site shed. It's one of the reasons why I get guests like yourselves on the show, so people can learn the right questions and they can learn where to find the right people. And also, it's one of the reasons why we launched Tradie Mate Pro. It's basically taking people through those stages of business, but it's also about giving them access to like a reliable pool of experts that we know and we have gone out and sourced, and people that we work with and we know, like, and trust, and we know they do good work. So for the listeners out there that are like, well, yeah, I mean, I know I should be asking these questions and find the right people, but it's not always, it's quite a daunting task to make sure that you're asking the right questions to the right people, because it's quite easy if you don't have an understanding of what you're supposed to be looking at yourself. Like if you don't understand finance and you're going to a inverted commas finance expert, like it's pretty easy for them to pull the wool over your eyes just by throwing in a few big words.
And it is very easy for us to, earlier this week, my director of operations looked at me and she said, stop using that word. I was talking about coding. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, you're using that word interchangeably with everything else, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And I said, okay. And what I have learned with my clients is I tell all of them, keep a notebook by your bed. And when you hear something or you have a thought about something, write it down. And then don't be afraid to ask the question as to what it means, how it applies to you, because what a lot of professionals won't tell you is we are simply practicing accounting. It's called the practice of law, the practice of accounting, the practice of medicine. It's not an exact science. There are things that we are still learning. So ask them and challenge the professional or the advisor that you're talking to. And if the answer just doesn't make sense, get a second opinion.
Yep.
And I think and you almost have to acknowledge and be humble in the fact that says, I don't know everything. When I got started, I found a business owner that was not even in the accounting field. He was the vice president of operations for Delta Airlines. He handled all their international ops, and I asked him to mentor me in sound business practices. And he did for over 14 years. He was a great mentor to me until he passed away. But I could go to him and say, here are some stupid questions. I've got this issue that's come up. What do I do, or what do you suggest? And he gave me a very honest answer every time. And sometimes I didn't like the answer because I knew I had done something wrong. But you still need to ask those questions and be willing to learn from them.
Yeah, and I think that is such an important point. And to be fair, if all of us have people within our networks that would, could potentially play a similar role to the fellow that you were just speaking about then, it doesn't always have to be someone that has, is a chartered accountant or whatever. It could be someone with real business experience, and you'll often find the advice you get from someone that's been in the trenches and is willing to help you. And you'll often find as well the people that have been out there and have been in the trenches and have experienced real world results, they're probably more likely the ones that are going to be able to give you honest feedback, because they're not trying to sell you their service, or they're not trying to sell you products or solutions. They're genuinely there because they can give you feedback on their experience, which is so important. We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guy's content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organizations as a way that you guys as trade business owners can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport, because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. The biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem because, first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guy's content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content Fill in the form and one of our representatives will come back to you. Advisory is super important when we talk about laying the right foundations for your business. We've spoken about, well, we haven't really spoken about planning and forecasting, but I think it kind of ties into advisory. So, I mean, I know one of the big things that I like to do now in my businesses is set make sure that I've got goals and things to achieve, from a forecasting perspective, which might be 12 months, 3 years, breaking them down into monthly goals, breaking them down into weekly actions and then daily tasks. This as well, I sort of tie into my financial forecasting. So every month I'll sit down and I'll have a look at numbers and things like that. I mean, I reconcile every week, so I'm always in my accounts, making sure that I know what's coming in and what's going out. But then, every month I'll have more of a detailed look as to, I suppose, the figures which are tying into the quarterly goals and the annual goals and that kind of stuff, just to make sure I'm tracking correctly. So I would recommend. I'm not quite sure how you play this with your business or with your clients, but I know it's made a big difference for me. Just taking the time, at least once a month, to sit down and really get granular with the strategy side of things. So looking at not so much looking at numbers per se, because numbers and figures that you've got coming into your business are normally indicative of other indicators. So things like, your lead flow, which can be indicative to how much, your Google ad campaigns and how that's performing, or it could be, how many repeat customers you're getting, or, how much word of mouth work you're getting. Like looking at those sort of figures, because you'll find, how many leads you're getting through Google will indicate how many jobs you're winning, which will indicate how much money you're making, which will then indicate, what your incoming, will affect your balance sheet and all that kind of stuff. Do you go down that path with your customers or clients, Dad?
Yes. What we look at is we try to find 3 key performance indicators, something that they want to measure, because your profit and loss is after the fact.
Right.
That's trying to drive your car looking through the rearview mirror. Whereas there are things that you can look at that tell you, hey, we are on track to meet our goal.
Yeah.
And a business that can successfully identify 3, basically it gives you the chance to focus on what you want. Be it as you said, the number of leads coming in through a Google ad. Well, if you know that you can convert 20% of leads that come in, then, and that's a number that you've had, then it doesn't matter what the dollar value of that is. If you're only getting 10 leads a month from your Google ad and you convert 20 of them, or 20%, you're only getting 2 new customers. That's not the type of growth that you may want. Now, if those customers are $30,000 a month customers, then hey, more power to you.
Yeah.
But you have to be specific in what you're wanting to measure, and it does not have to be the checking account. It can simply be how many service calls come in, or how many working with heating and air conditioning companies. We installed 22 new units. Now, out of that, how many did we get signed up for routine quarterly maintenance to come out and to check on the units once every 3 months?
Right.
That could be a key performance indicator of how the company's healthy and doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important actually that you bring that up, because I mean, especially we have conversations almost daily with companies that'll call in and say, hey, we need more work. And I always try and take the focus off lead generation to lead optimization. And I say, well, let's stop looking at getting more leads, because it looks like at the moment the leads you are getting, you're not converting. So if you're spending, say, $10,000 a month on Google Ads at the moment and you're converting at 1%, if we can increase that by 2%, then you're spending the same amount of money, but you're doubling the work you're getting. So it's a bit of a paradigm shift when you can communicate that to companies the right way. But that correlates across the board, I think, conversion versus generation.
Correct. And there was a movie that was out a long time ago called Jerry Maguire. And I don't know if you ever saw the movie or not, but
no, never. Show me the money.
Exactly. And one of the scenes is more is not necessarily better.
Right.
We've gone through our own shift where we can grow as a firm, but you as a person can only interact with so many people and have a one-on-one relationship with.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how many people come through the door. If you're giving that one-on-one time, you're limited to either the number of hours in a day or the number of people that work for you. And that's what contractors, I believe, especially some of the trades, I'll be plumbers. And no offense, because I know you used to be a plumber, but you would call a plumber because your toilet was clogged. And then you may not hear from him for 3 or 4 days because all of a sudden he's become the most popular plumber in the world because he was doing great service and then his business was growing. And now he can't ever make a single return phone call because he's so busy and caught up. So you have to learn how to balance and say, okay, hey, when I get so many number of clients, it's time for me to look at what my strategy is for when do I bring on the next person.
Right.
And I think that part of the fundamentals is having what we call a product flow chart that says when we hit this level of customer service, we need to look at adding in another apprentice or bringing in another field tech at this volume level to make sure that we can adequately cover the calls that are coming in, because we don't want to get a bad reputation for not answering calls or not servicing people properly.
Yeah. And I suppose that's the kind of thing that you can break down to, like when we're talking about KPIs, right? We can say, right, well, this is how many leads we need to generate in order to get this much work. And once we can get this much work, then we can bring someone in that can fulfill the growth.
Right. And depending upon the different trade, if you were installing the work and there's a subdivision that's coming in, and you know that, hey, we have a chance of getting the subdivision in the next 6 to 8 months, it's going to be 200 new homes that we get to do work in. Well, your KPI might be the number of new builds in your market, because there's a certain level of percentage that you have of getting those jobs. So that might be your KPI that's tied to your growth forecasting. So there's just, and it's just how your business is set up. Every business is unique.
Yeah.
Because of the people that are operating and running that business, and finding that uniqueness is part of what makes it special.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could talk about this again all day, I'm sure, laying the right foundations for your business. But I think, like, fundamentally, if you can understand, if you can take the time and allocate time within your week, your month, your year to plan and forecast and set a bit of a game plan, you can then reverse engineer that. So you can take that strategy and you can say, okay, well, in 1 year's time, 12 months' time, I want to be here. This is what I need to do the next quarter to keep me on track for that. This is what I do the quarter after, the quarter after. These are the monthly deliverables that need to be hit within that quarter in order to keep me on track for those quarterly goal. And you can break the monthly deliverables down into weekly tasks and daily actions, and you can get really granular with it. And it's pretty much always the case that if you can take like a big goal and break it down into bite-sized chunks, you'll come close to hitting it.
You do. And there was a study that was done that said that 80% of the people that write down a yearly goal, if they just write it down and they read that list every day, will hit those goals.
Yeah, I find that that's true to a degree, as long as they build a strategy around working towards it. Because I mean, I've done that over the years, written goals down and got nowhere because there's no daily actionables. Like, it just, the difference between a goal and a wish is strategy and breaking it down into deliverable chunks. So, right. But anyway, I know what you're saying. I've read the same book.
It's like, how do you eat an elephant? One chunk at a time.
Right.
An elephant can be eaten one small bite at a time. Eventually, you'll enjoy that entire elephant.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of your business, is when you fundamentally set out your businesses, what is it that you want your business to accomplish? I had to sit down with a lady. She decided she wanted to get into into doing a trade business because she thought that she could pay better attention to trim and the attention to detail in doing carpentry and trim molding. And I said, that's fantastic. I said, but what are your goals? Well, I just want to do it better. All right, but better than what? Better than who? Give me some definable goals as to where you want to be and what you want to achieve. And then, like you said, we're not saying write down your wishes. Write down your goals, because you have to create an action plan around those goals. And then those goals will help determine what your cash flow needs are. When you go to the bank and you talk to them about why you need a loan, they'll see that you've already thought the process of what you need to lend out, where your cash flow is going to go. And then you can have a report card that measures your success.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, yeah, so we've got the goals there. We've got checking your numbers regularly, guys. So setting yourself up with, an accounting software, whatever it is. I mean, they're not expensive. I think Xero cost me $50 a month or something. It might cost you a little bit more than that if you've got payroll and that kind of stuff. But I mean, it does really make your life a lot easier when you're trying to keep track of your business expenses, map it to the right chart of accounts. And you'll probably find, guys, as well. I mean, I know certainly is the case for me. Spending that $50 a month on a bookkeeping software saves you thousands on accounting fees, because your accountant doesn't have to go through and manually, do all this stuff. The technology does it for you. So get yourself set up on some on accounting software packages. There's a bunch of them out there. We like Xero, Xero, as I know you do as well, Tab. There's MYOB, there's Intuit. There's a whole bunch of different programs there you can go check out. So just go search or go Google bookkeeping software. Have an advisory team. So make sure that you've got people that are feeding you advice which doesn't necessarily correlate to a certain product or a service that they're trying to flog you. That's a big takeaway for me. I mean, I know that, the most of those valuable advice can often be free advice, but then on the same token, the most valuable advice that I've ever received is from people that aren't trying to flog me stuff, and they've got real world experience in what I'm trying to achieve. And apart from that, I think that pretty much maps it out. Is there anything we've missed there, Tab?
The only thing that I'd say is that I don't think we covered is you started a business to make your life better. Make sure that you identify what your personal goals are, your personal why you're doing it, and pay yourself.
Right.
Pay yourself first. Don't pay yourself last. Pay yourself first. And that way you can make sure that you have a reason for waking up every morning and going back into the office. Yeah,
no, I love that. It's and I know that can probably sound very rainbows and unicorns to a lot of the listeners out there, but it is important, guys. You got to make sure that you're in business. I mean, you started your business for a reason, right? So, definitely paying yourself is essential. We've all been through that stage, I'm sure, where you're not, and it's a grind. You just feel like you're constantly chasing your tail.
Yeah, and that's where, as I mentioned earlier about not wanting to take a look at my books, is the grind was I realized that I was in business so that everyone else's family could be fed.
Right.
But I wasn't taking care of my wife or my kids, and was that the right thing to do?
Right.
And that's where you have to be a little selfish on yourself and say, okay, this business is about me and what I want to accomplish and what I want to provide my family. And this is how I'm going to do it through this business. It's going to do X, Y, and Z. And then you make the business become your tool to make sure that it accomplishes it for you. And if that tool is broken, then you replace the tool. You find out what's inside of the business that needs to be corrected, and you make that tool work for you. I mean, If you had, when you were a plumber, if you had an auger that constantly kept breaking, how long are you going to keep that auger on your truck? You're going to get rid of it or get a new one. Mm-hmm. Your business is nothing bigger than a large, oversized, expensive tool.
And I think that is such a great analogy too. I mean, as soon as we can realize that when you are in business, you have that ability to shift things. And especially when you're running a small business, like, I mean, I know we work with a lot of large companies, and to get the smallest things done on, like, even a website, for example, change copy or add photos or whatever, got to go through 15 decision makers. And it's just a freaking nightmare. And we, by design now, we just decide we don't want to work with those sort of companies because of the red tape that's involved. Whereas when you're a small business, you can make decisions, you can snap your fingers, and you can shift things in a different direction. And you've got the ability to do that. Like Tab just said, if something's broken, let's change something and do it differently so that it ain't broke no more. And I think sometimes when we get caught up in the running of our business, we neglect to realize that we do have the flexibility to make these amendments, and we can shift, and we can test, and we can split test, and we can do all these cool things, which can make a big difference.
It certainly can.
Tab, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been an awesome series. I know everyone's going to love this. Your company is The Numbers House. The website's thenumbershouse.com, spelt the way it's said. Guys, if you want to reach out to Tab, you can get hold of him. The email is hello, HELLO, at thenumbershouse.com. And they are at The Numbers House on social media. Mate, it's been great talk. I loved it. So for the listeners that tuned in on this episode, this was the third episode of the Tax Essentials for Tradies and Contractors series that I've conducted with Tab. Go back and check out episode 1 and 2 if you haven't already, which was part 1, why you need to keep 2 sets of books, and part 2, understanding cash flow and reporting. As always, guys, if you've got questions, you can post them in the comment section wherever you see this come across social media. You can also reply to the email if you subscribe to our weekly site meetings. And if you've got any follow-up questions that you want me to ask Tab, I'm sure he will be more than willing to come back and answer them. Tab, thank you once again. It's been awesome. Is there anything you wanted to add before we sign out?
Matt, thank you for having me, and look forward to joining you again.
Brilliant. And that, listeners, is a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to the siteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.